Please now generate the motivation of bodhicitta, the heart of awakening, thinking, in order to establish all sentient beings, all mother sentient beings who are limitless in number as the expanse of space, in the state of perfect and complete enlightenment, all-knowing enlightenment. I will therefore listen to this profound Dharma, an explanation of the 9 vehicles leading to the ultimate fruition of the great perfection, this teaching of the ultimate view of the great perfection, the inseparability of purity and equality. I will listen to this teaching and put it into practice and accomplish it in order to liberate and enlighten all beings.
Ngoya tini ta dango nganzo tini ta che be nenga sanando de dangam demba yerme korni gyachim ba shebare tini de naune tini ta tekpashen le nge chidange aranzo ge tini tekpashen na chidange chiro motik pa namba sangi se tambo tumdar shena na ba ni de chakore de de kana chiro motik be tumdar na takche ni gi ta was ta dango geishin gepa shepare tene nangpa sangi ge tepa tela tepa chenpo tang tepa chung se namba nyi yegu yore tan jimi lingpa ge ngarang so yin zo nangla jimi lingpa ge tena yondin zo nangla tika sungsha du tende kanga tangbo chiwa tam nangpa se mi che chiwa ge tawala da tangwon kya shimbo she tring she ma ko che chirol targa denga se ta de indi kanga ten tenzo chol du shi na taksi dengi se de che ten nangbi ki chiwa se nangpa ta chiwa se de kanga nangpa se de kanga ngarang so 상계 좀 된데 되네 겹선 좋아 어야 되네 그나 되네 상계 건조 주 건조 민든 건조 숨 되네 겹이 한다도 계는 게라 되네 남바 상계에서 그 열다 들라야 되네 이젠 저선나야 개와시게 나 따위고니 개버 주비고니 개버 공비고니 개버 tartum 되고니 개버 되네 야심 보송샤게 띵데 따다네 디나라에 나야 되네 대대비게 개버 탐제디 다조오데tin 따위고니 개버티난 다조오디시고요레 인디 강하다 마르자시에는 따와 콤바치반티고 탐지고니 치료 모티고 남바상기니게 개버티는 송샤 근데 디디에다 난동 치료 모티비게 좀다 탐제디 난공아도다 아시아 살바르고지레 다다 남바상기기 따바틀라다 년퇴다랑 결정섬 수무요레 야 되네 년퇴다랑 결니데 되네 그라바 태반 멤버레 되네 정수성 기계 태바데 태바 첨부를 다 도시지 막 모두시텔다.
So in that way, please give rise to the appropriate motivation and also the corresponding conduct and listen to the teaching in that way. Yesterday we talked at some length about the ultimate view of the great perfection, the inseparability of purity and equality. We also began to look at the various vehicles, not just the vehicles of Buddha Dharma, but also the non-Buddhist schools. And we said that essentially all of the non-Buddhist positions can be condensed into 2 categories, those that hold nihilistic views and those that hold eternalist views. Essentially, these are the 5 tarka, the 5 non-Buddhist schools that were prevalent in ancient India. So we compared the kind of baseline Buddhist view to the views of these non-Buddhist schools, which are either eternalistic or nihilistic, and distinguished the Buddhist view and Buddhist vehicles from those other traditions, right? In Jigme Lingpa's treatise, The Treasure of Precious Qualities, this is how he proceeds. First of all, comparing Buddhist views to non-Buddhist, and then moving on to compare the view and approach of the Mahayana, the greater vehicle, with that of the lesser vehicle, the Hinayana. How do we define a Buddhist? Simply speaking, how do you define someone as a Buddhist as opposed to a non-Buddhist? We can say that someone who takes refuge in the 3 jewels of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, who recognizes them as genuine objects of refuge and places their trust in them, such a person is a Buddhist. That's one way to define or distinguish what it means to be a Buddhist. You can also one can also define Buddhists, the meaning of being a Buddhist, in terms of the view, meditation, conduct, fruition, and so on, in comparison to other approaches. We won't go into those details right now. In this way, though, one can, we won't go into those details now, but that said, one can, so yesterday we started the process of distinguishing the Buddhist view and Buddhist approach from that of non-Buddhists, right? Before getting into marking the distinctions of the various vehicles of the Buddhist path itself. And as I've just said, in this text that we're looking at, and the kind of perspective we're taking now, we are looking at everything from the point of view of the view. We're looking at everything from the view, the outlook, and making distinctions based on the view. But we could also make these distinctions based on meditation, conduct, fruition, and so on. But here we are, our basic stance point is the view. So we've already covered the distinctions between Buddhist and non-Buddhists in terms of the view, and now we'll begin with the first 3 of the 9 vehicles. These 3 being the vehicle of Shravakas, of Pratyeka Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas. The first 2, the vehicles of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, belong to the Hinayana, or we could say lesser or foundational vehicle, and whereas the vehicle of Bodhisattvas belongs to the Mahayana or greater vehicle.
Oh yeah. Teni ta tepa nabasangi ge tumta telayang tene tepa chungo nyentyo tang tepa chimbo o ma tepa chungo nyentyo rangyal na tepa chimbo chanchu semki tepa re tene chanchu semki tepa telayang yang nangse ki chechungi yore nangse ki tepa tene tepa chimbo tela tene ndire Sidangi tepa chikdang, tene tumo maayinpi tepa chik, tumo maayinpi tepa ti, tene sanga durji tepa sare. Sanga durji tepa ti nangla ya tene nangsi yawa ina jagyu te jagyu nanjur lami ki gyusin gyu namba ji. Ti indu kangla ta jagyu nanjur lami ki gyu ji yore, gyu te ki tepa chimbu gata, kepar ki tene tepa chimbu nangla, tumo maayinpi tepa chimbu nangla ji. Ti tepa chimbu ki ji nangne, Nanchur lami ki gyutelaya, nangsi ki yontukangla pagyuta, magyuta, nimi ki gyuyus, tangaranzo, chidangi Nyingma ke choke tocha, tiya upa yoga sakin, chikyu desumcha, tene nangyu desumdela, maha anu ati se, tene nangyu desumdela, sumi yontukangla, tene tuksha sunre, tene yontukangla tangpo gyute shishirikangla, jagyu nanchur ki gyutela, tiya upa yoga sumcha, tene nanjur ke lami ki gyusela, nukitela, tene dee nangse sumi yedukangla, maha anu ati se tene kebar yores.
So within the various vehicles of Buddhism, there are 2 vehicles pertaining to for Hinayana, I'll say foundational vehicle, okay? So there are 2 vehicles pertaining to the foundational vehicle, the Shravaka vehicle and the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle, those 2. Then we have the greater vehicle, or the Mahayana, which refers to the Bodhisattva vehicle. But the Bodhisattva, so we have these 2 major distinctions, basic distinctions, or basic division. The foundational vehicle on the one hand, which refers to which can be further divided into the Shravaka vehicle and the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle. And then on the other hand, the greater vehicle, which refers to the vehicle of Bodhisattvas. And this can be further divided into 2, the common Bodhisattva vehicle and the special Bodhisattva vehicle. The special Bodhisattva vehicle refers to the Vajrayana. And the Vajrayana itself can be further divided into 4, meaning these 4 divisions being the 4 sections of Tantra. So the 4 sections of Tantra are Kriya Tantra, Upa Tantra, Yoga Tantra, and then the 4th is Unsurpassable Yoga Tantra. So these are the 4 main divisions within the Vajrayana system. in the Nyingma system, according to the special terminology of the Nyingma system, these four tantras. So the first three of these four tantras, Kriya, Upa, and Yoga, are grouped together as the outer tantras. And then the fourth, the unsurpassable Yoga Tantra, that is further divided into three: Maha Yoga Tantra, Anu Yoga Tantra, and Ati Yoga, meaning the great perfection. So that's a further threefold division of unsurpassable Yoga Tantra according to the Nyingma system. Masurms.
That tiringi nekapna tangarang so tene tekwarimba gunane shiro mutik bete tang tene tangyam damba irmiki tawade ta tangbo jewaji sheba indu ta tiring ta lamsang tene nyentu ge tekwa dang tene rangsanji ge tekwa dan tene gochu tema shugins.
So yesterday we discussed the distinction between non-Buddhists and Buddhists, and the view of the consummate view of purity, inseparable purity and equality. We went through that in detail. So today, since we've already covered those points, today I will just go straight into the Shravaka vehicle and the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle, the first two of the 9 vehicles.
Gyundru Sangwa Nyingbo Senanda, Tene Tandangana to Menga Tating, Gurumbachi Meta Tating, second and detail, but Tetina Kansumosana, Mato Patan, Loto, Choto Yanda, Yamato, Gloa Gumbasawa, Ranshin Sanvi, Dundam Nis, take it Sholoka Chinala, Tene Tanjusondo, Tinala, Mato Patan, Lobratopa, Nison Res, that Tiringi Nekosu. Choto sekinda yanda nyimato sekingeti nyeleptitus.
Following the approach or the intent of the Guyagaba Tantra, which is also presented in Guru Rinpoche's summary text, A Garland of Views, then these various vehicles, as well as the non-Buddhist traditions, are described are described in the following way. We also quoted these lines yesterday more than once: no understanding, wrong understanding, partial understanding, non-understanding of the ultimate true nature, and so on. Several lines of quotation, right? We read yesterday. The first line here, mentioning no understanding and wrong understanding, is describing the various traditions of the non-Buddhists, right? We discussed that yesterday. The next line reads partial understanding and non-understanding of the ultimately true nature. So partial understanding here is referring to the Shravaka vehicle and the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle.
Yeah, the Kanta Tiring into Tang, Tinigi, Tineshapi Capre, the Kanata, there are Chidunkus of the Duduji, Kanda Kosana. Gyundru Sangwa Nyingbo te, tan digi tene tsawa de ta, mashi Gyundru Sangwa Nyingbo chenpo re ta, tiringi mi khana mujegi te, tanda menga tachingi dewa nang tatu kama ngarang tosa yang shenang ke song, tan de tene chidangi deba megen mi dang. Te tina shin chigi chidangi Gyundru Sangwa Nyingbo la tepu kama se ngarang chowa ina, tendegi tene lo mi chubi ki dang, tanyam tenpa irmi re lo mi chubi ki mi dang. Tene choy la deba megen dang, tenzu la tene di sangwa chikul ma tong, sangwa ma che na, Chepa Pola Yeva Yungu, Yangan Lion, and Pampa Chico Yungu Mason, and Mosun Shadow, Tati Lodukala. Tashi was Vijitana, dear Majore, that came to Taparamba Goo Labre, Taparamba Goose again, they Gunsen that Dembisha were marked, Gunsen the Mamashinani, the Chamakan Chagre, Gunsen the Dembashinani, they can do some Mundi in a Gombachene, when not touching the Shira Shamashana, Matan to go, they didn't gala. That was the country and the Samsung that I can do some of the Sanwa instant payment was on share. The Sanwa say you don't die at the They did that. You just want you book on get on that. Netoji, Mashebana, Kenaban Haku Mare, Tepo Kepati Haku Mare. Neto Shiva in any Munigate and the Sabtania, Jumaji, Damoni, Jutso that the Sabosula, the Kajas, especially with the Tamara Japan and Sashim, Malachala Sashim, would come now, Gocha, Tetsi, Captain Petina Singits and Sanja Mongoya. Takan Manaya. That she check out Galsa to Galaya, so long you may attack up to Galvan, Tintaran Gildu Union. Take up to Toshakiman Tapsi Mere. The Indu Kana, that dig it net the Tur Dushana, someone Ningbo getting a Rabji, you should subdue Marmar. Liu should assume Zani, Liu should Zani, Tangi, not Liu Zani. Arab changes the answer share to the Indu Kana, Liu Zani, or it is not Tam take it on the Tur Dushana. Tang should sort of a good king of Chujix and Tutor, was a Limunani. Then it's sort of Dushana, now she's in Tutor. Now she's in the Tangit and now she gonna Tapa, Ji Nawa, Mata Trubi Nawa, Drop a Lamkin Nawa, Tartum TV Nawa, so now I know Tutor. Rest the India Kanata. Now I see thing it do she can about shooting it and you can shooting in the Margaret.
Tapa. No, she.
Tapa Ji Nawa, Kaujaki Wishi, Ji Nawa, Mata Trubi Nawa, Drop a Lamkin Nawa, Tartum TV Nawa. She lam Jews, she ever good.
Before we get right into the Shravaka vehicle and the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle, I want to give you an overview according to the an overview as is given in the Guhyagarbha Tantra. The Guhyagarbha Tantra is so vast. Nevertheless, today actually I was reading Mipam Rinpoche's commentary on A Garland of Views, Guru Rinpoche's text, and it actually made me a little anxious because Mipam Rinpoche says there repeatedly and emphatically how one must observe secrecy regarding these key points of Tantra and the profound view of inseparable purity and equality, and how it's so important to conceal these points from those who lack faith and who might not be open or ripe enough to actually accommodate such a profound, vast outlook. Because of the consequences of revealing these profundities to the wrong sorts of people who aren't ready. And it made me a little anxious because, of course, last night we went through, we talked quite a lot about the inseparability of purity and equality. Nevertheless, there were reasons why I chose to do that. There were reasons why I chose to do that. It's only when you need to have some understanding of the great perfection view of inseparable purity and equality in order to understand the purpose behind making this ninefold division of the vehicles. And to understand the purpose of why so much attention is paid to these vehicles, why it's presented in this way. Like I said, the distinctions are made from the consummate point of view of the great perfection, the inseparability of purity and equality. And if you lack any understanding of that, then going sort of from bottom up, so to speak, won't really make sense to you, won't really give you anything. So that's why I chose to actually reveal those profound key points to you. Nevertheless, I read Rinpoche's commentary, I got a bit anxious. Indeed, in the tantras are kept secret properly they are kept secret, and we say they are sealed with, they are held closed by secret seals, a bit like if you have something really valuable, like a valuable object, you keep it in a safe and lock it up with a key. Maybe you have actually like a safe within a safe within a safe, right? To keep that object really safe because it is so precious and valuable. The tantras likewise are kept guarded by what we call secret seals. Nevertheless, I've already shared these points with you, and there's no going back. So that's that. The Guhyagarbha Tantra, so let's continue. The Guhyagarbha Tantra has 22 chapters, and these 22, the contents of these 22 chapters can be condensed into the 11 principles of Tantra, or I think last night I said the 11 principles of mantra, that's also okay, the 11 principles of Tantra. And those 11 principles can be further condensed into the 4 perceptions. So what are these 4 perceptions? They are the pure perception of the ground, the impure perception of confusion, the perception of those traveling the path, and the ultimate perception of the fruition. So I'll say those again. The pure perception of the ground, the impure perception of confusion, the perception of those traveling the path, meaning the spiritual path, and the ultimate perception of the fruition. That's what
yeah. That in the tango tapa shi now asking the council where is a bunch of the new Karangaranzo get in a tata nawa, make a so now it done around to go Shivana now that Tamchete, in a yen time de by Yermigaration to the rest. She knew it in a sample down under, Nangchukistan Rotana, the net did not chinchigi, Kawala Sambatana, and a Tamchete. Tanyam tapa yemiki rashindu neteva imba tela tap dewa mungu katsang jab sasung de ta ti ti cheshan dikzari tela tapa shi nawa asgares.
So as for the first of these, the pure perception of the ground, this refers to the fact that the pure perception of the ground is the fact that, or refers to the fact that all phenomena, or rather everything we perceive, so all appearances and experiences, everything we perceive through our visually or everything we hear and we sense and so on, all of these appearances and experiences are primordially pure and equal, the inseparability of purity and equality. This is the case for all phenomena, whether they be external phenomena or internal phenomena. All things, just as we explained last night, are both pure and equal by their very nature. So this is the pure perception of the ground.
Tene mata churi nawas, ta mata churi nawas ngaransu naware, ta te yene takwa rete, takwa nashi matone, tene kara para sa sangye chemo mato, sa tene sarutong, shu mama kiru matong, shu tene kara churutong. Hina shingi yuwa nga de rangsin to tongwa, pungbo nga diya tene sangye nga yi rangsin to matongwa, diya tene kara pa zudan sarwan tushin tujige na brashewe ki rangsin to tongpiti, mata churi nawa sigeres. Ta diya mata churi nangtang diya ngarang mi nawa chigo mayimba, tene nyalwalani, tene nyalwa chachak ki dungal changyal ta changyal ki nawa chuyare, diya naware mata churi naware. Tene tina shinchige yidalani tegum ki dungal yore, diya ki tere nawa chuyare. Tina shinche tundulani tine chigi tsewa tong kolchwe tong ongshing tine mongbi ki tine dungal chuyare. Ten milani ngarangsu tiki nawa tire, ten halayina layi ki tine nawa yore, hamayilani ten tabzu ki nawa, halan pudung ki dungal ta dungal ki nawa nra, menda lenang ki wangi nra menda nangi yore. Ti indi kangla ta, tizo jashinpo sheki na dangsan tabini mongo sheki tu tekshin soju sota. Ting dangsan ngarangsu tsenri ki sarwa tine tabzi, uni chik kyansa u tine nawa ina yan chik nra menda mongo nangyuwer, tenso thamje de madak chulwi nawa asagere, ten semjen ruruki tene chunang teke dungal, tanda ngarangso tene nyongdewa ti yang takwa nawa mari, tene madak chulwi nawa asagere.
Second, we have the impure perception of confusion, or we could say the impure perception of a confused state. This refers to our experience, basically, our perception. It's a confused, impure perception. All phenomena are primordially pure. That is how they have always been, but we don't perceive things or experience things that way. Instead, we see earth as ordinary earth. We see water not as Buddha Mamaki, which, excuse me, not as the female Buddha Mamaki, which is its true nature. Instead, we see it as just ordinary water, and so on. We don't recognize that the 5 aggregates are actually the 5 male Buddhas. The 5 elements are actually the 5 female Buddhas. Instead, what we see, what we perceive, is the 5 aggregates that comprise our self, and so on. So this is, this perception of ours is confused, impure perception. It is not in accord with the way things really are. And this applies to the perception of all sentient beings, no matter which form they've been born in. For instance, the suffering of intense heat and cold that afflicts beings in the hell realms. Those experiences are confused, impure experiences. Likewise, the hunger and thirst and so on afflicting the hungry ghosts, those experiences are confused, impure perceptions. Likewise, for the suffering of animals, being enslaved, being preyed upon and so on, those are confused, impure perceptions. The same goes for all of the experiences and appearances of us humans, and likewise for the demigods who experience conflict and strife and so on, and the gods who have their own experience. All experiences and appearances of sentient beings are confused, impure perceptions. This is explained in in much more detail in treatises such as Rongso Mahapandita's Entering the Great Vehicle. I'll get the proper title for that translation later. And also, actually, we can also look at some of the things that modern scientists are discovering, the things that modern scientists are coming to perceive through their own investigations, right? Some of those actually match up with this. In short, this is the second type of perception, impure perception of confusion, or impure confused perception. That's
Tene ti jela dropa lam gi nawa seres ta dropa lam gi nawa segen tene da nyentyo ge lam da ran sang ge lam da cha chu sem ge thepar ma ku tham che de tharduk panyam de ba yerme gi tene taba ji nawa de thopchi ge lam indu ti thopchi de dropa lam gi lam sta ta dropa lam ji ta dangong she re ta tring ni ma ta sta ma she ne nyentyo ge lam gi kan re ne sang gi ko bang tu bu yo re ran sang ge lam gi ran sang gi ke tene ko bang kan re tu ge cha chu sem gi sang ge kan re tu ge re Tia tang upa ta tina shingi tina anu tina shi tia upa yoga ta anu atila sobi ki tina rang susu ke lam ki dusul kanti yore esne tila drupa lam ki tina ka nawa aslap shere ta tina la pang nyingi pangcha ta nyampo yore ishi tensur shere pangcha pangsur shere yore yendu drupa lam ki nawa as ta tila drupa tila sheba yena ta nga rang su dusul tila shere lam ki goni sheba yena ta ti kansa goni shen tepar bagu sma she wore lam gi gona tene solam jorlam tholam gomlam salam ga nam sha she chore te indu kan ta lam lo gom dan so ya dan dina she do re nyen tu gi kan gom go me ran san ki kon do gom go me jang ju sen bi ki kan lam kan gom go me te ju tham je tela do par lam ki na ne se go res
drupa
do ju ba gar ta dan do ba wait.
So third, the perception of those traveling the path. This refers to the perception of all practitioners following all of the 9 vehicles, from the Shravaka vehicle all the way up to the 9th vehicle of Ati Yoga, or the Great Perfection. All of these 9 vehicles, the practice of all of these 9 vehicles are paths to reach the 4th type of perception, which is the ultimate perception of the fruition, right? So all of these, the paths of the 9 vehicles, all lead one to the state of the fruition, which is the 4th of these 4th types of perception. And indeed, this is what we're going to be looking at from now on, right? How each of the vehicles accomplish their specific path, their specific approach. Each of the vehicles take a path to enlightenment, and each do it a slightly different way. They have a different approach, they identify different discards to be abandoned, different ways to abandon those discards, and so on. When we talk about the path, but they are nevertheless, in spite of the differences, they are all on the path to accomplishing enlightenment. So this is what the 3rd type of perception is about, is referring to the various perceptions of those traveling the path. When we talk about, when we look at this process from the perspective of individuals, so the different types of individuals, then we can make the distinction of the 9 vehicles. So this classification of 9 vehicles is made from the perspective of the approach of individual practitioners. If we look at the different kind of levels and if we look at the path to enlightenment from the perspective of stages of the path, like stages of the journey, then we can make a classification into 5 paths: the path of accumulation, joining, seeing, and so on.
다 나와 터득게 되네 시바데 터득 디위 나와서 터득 디위는 상기가 나왔다. 뒤따고 당연된 바 예를 들어서 그래. 뭐라 추진 컨셉스나 kunzup taba chenpo tang, tondom nyamba chenpo tang nyam tenpa yerme se ta adi yoga ki ta yuene mena disum tere, di nangnya tang nyam tenpa yerme ki nawa di, ngondu kyo song kyo di, dine sangji ki sari, dila dine tartung diwi nawa sari, stan diwi gang shekwe, sta diyang diwi li yawa shina, di shing yu zang ala sowa, pe mi ki kya shekwe shekwe, di sarga tan diwi saki di, dine tang nyam tenpa yerme ki tawa, 다 군접 다바침부터 동년바침부터 당염된 바 yermegi tawa ngantene ngondu kyone diu ngondu kyeketa tadung diu nawasa gres ta didi nawa yigi tengni tene liu ngi zangi pura diton ma xiang gres chazang.
Then we have the 4th type of perception, the ultimate perception of the fruition. This refers to the perception, so-called perception of the enlightened state. Buddha's perception, namely the full realization of the inseparability of purity and equality. So when that view is realized or made fully manifest, that is the ultimate perception of enlightened ones, the 4th type of perception. When we say the inseparability of purity and equality, purity refers to, the longer version of that phrase would be the truth of inseparable purity and equality. Purity then referring to purity referring to the relative truth of great purity, and equality referring to the ultimate truth of great equality. These two being an essential union, essentially inseparable. This is the heart and the most crucial, vital point of the Hatha Yoga teachings, the Hatha Yoga's great perfection approach. When this reality of inseparable purity and equality is fully realized, we could say made fully manifest, fully actualized as it is, then one is fully enlightened, and this is and has this 4th type of perception, the ultimate perception of the fruition. This can be discussed in terms of 35 qualities of the ultimate fruition, and so on. We could go into a lot of detail, but again, we won't do that here. To sum up or to reiterate, we can talk about these 4 types of perception, and it is these 4 types of perception essentially that are discussed and elaborated upon through the 22 chapters of the Guyagaba Tantra.
Dagi nganzogi chodok sakin di shei kapsule ta di rimba nangji di kong chodok sakin jita ya dine di ki shebi kap na ta nyen tu tarang dil nyi she go tu chodok yang ta Nyingma to sa chodok pa sakin ta di nyen tu she go tangpo nyen tu sakin kansa ta di tamche tarduk sangi kopang toba yinba doba chigi yinba la di rangi dine kansa sana dosul di yang tapa chi tamchi samgor nyentu korang galam yang tapa dil laka sangi kopang topsa me sam rang sangi kena rang sangi kopang dil laka korang topsa chi me sam dine janchu sem ina janchu sem ki sangi kopang topi ta dil lam yang tapa yin dil laka chi tokyam kyo me seni dine samgi yo res yin na yang ngarang soge junju nang la 남줄 바이 로키기 고마고민 남기는 고마고만 남기는 성샤래 오마게 마통의 차셔 고마게 똑비 차셔래 디게 마똑비샤던 똑비차 디니기 때 태파디야 최종당 아름바당 들이차기요레스
준주기 농진
남줄 바이 로키기 고마고만 남기는 다들 단단들이
So, to go back to the verse from the Guyagaba Tantra that we have quoted, we're looking now at partial understanding, right? We have no understanding, wrong understanding. We've already discussed what those refer to. Now we're looking at partial understanding, which refers to the approach of the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, the vehicle of Shravakas and the vehicle of Pratyeka Buddhas. What this quotation from Guyagaba Tantra is saying is that the approach of the Shravakas and the Shravaka vehicle and the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle are only partial understandings of the view of inseparable purity and equality, right? So this is from the perspective of the Guyagaba Tantra and from the view of purity, inseparable purity and equality. Of course, from the perspective of the Shravaka's own perspective, the Pratyeka Buddha's own perspective, and likewise for the followers of all of the other vehicles, bodhisattvas and others included, of course they believe that their path, their vehicle, contains everything that is needed to reach the ultimate consummate state of enlightenment, right? The followers of the Shravaka vehicle, they do not believe that that their path lacks anything. They don't see any deficiencies in their own approach, right? They don't recognize deficiencies in their own approach. This is the case for the Shravaka vehicle followers and also for the followers of all of the other vehicles up to the final vehicle, right? Up to but not including the final vehicle. For instance, there's a quote in a verse in the Way of a Bodhisattva by Shantideva, which just speaks to this. To paraphrase, it says, the perceptions of practitioners are the understanding or perception of a given practitioner is refuted by a practitioner who is more developed. It's just speaking to the same principle that I was explaining. That's all.
다 딘데 인디가 당부 년퇴스다 그래. 년퇴스긴데 간디르스네. 딜라디네 nga랑 속에 년퇴기 멘션라 퇴족스라 그래. 퇴족스데 상기레 트르니 디네 랑게 샹라 야 딘데지라 퇴족스라 그래. 년퇴스네 라고래. 상기 군든라 디네 추년데 디디네 다 상기 나레 게비신 코랑 게비신선에 디네 샹라 버제발라 년퇴스. 디네 딜라 퇴족스네 가실 딜라 그래. 년 투 세겐데 땅다 랑상게 세겐데 택비 거네시는 년 투다 랑상게 넘바 니요레 디네다 딜레레게 되네 개와제 시나 땡아서 드린 살기 말에 강나스나 년 투 그런 게 도파 년 투라야 되네 난세게 제다마 담도데와 아스나 바니요레 되네 제다마게 도바다 어야 되네 도데와게 도발아서 바데네 림바신도 마셰바이나 Tene tachi she tukre tene tusokiya dang mare that lapardo kunjelong sharam jam dang kunjelong sharam jam ki tana ngarang so ishin zo nang la cheta ma wigen to patmo mai pa dun ske cheta do dewa gi tene ye gi tene cheta mon kansan do dewa gi she bi gi tene do bi gi tene to pa dun sa ta tin tam ji mara tang re ri ne tang ni mar she she na tene 당부티 거란 연두기 대화지 결과서 드린 게 두서 프레르도 저도래 다 tinzo 탐지게 네 도도 저거 지시나 되겠나 봐지 로라 차르대와 고대와 대상이양 그 배슝 침보되네 조주문 센터보다 지대원 와슬링 몰라서 보다 된되게 된 택과 구이 남자 이신저라서 봐라 됐다이들라 오 내가 그때에도 와서 하고 있던다 내가 내 신신이 도셔요래 인도가 제타마와게 도바칸도 벌써 따와디 컨트지레스나 제타마와단 도디바 니바직 바트고지레 데인데칸라 참행이데 된도 되고요래 야드네 도친 참에당 셰바케직 참에스 딩이데 된도레스 나랑 탐지 좀시디 참행이 건좀 그렇다 당 사이언티스트나 베 데바쇼 탄 사이언티스트 토케야 되네지레 당 알아서 Country basic in a chick second with Angalan, the more time you some should the country basic in a chick said, new termination item place among was to more time to some shit this word. This again, I think Chige, Chatama than do the council over time to get some shit attends to Chingo some shitty, the Chinchamed rest. Now shepherd something around to get him she get it, the shepherd the name. Getting some materials, the dignity get in a dental press, like the birth of the shepherd, the birth of the Zeti and the birth of the Ores. Why are that daddy commands of getting yeah, Chirtine, Rabatam jet tires, combat the Tamja tire, Kunzopres. Dig is some she chamity, then it dental prep, then it don't embarrass. Oh, I think around so gay in a shepherd, Rapati, Tom sort of young joke. 지금 대마원은 또 망고여와티 셰파티 근데 군다레스 셰파 차와 태위 차와디 뱅가랑 로이기 때문에 소셜 미디어 바디 되네 셰파케 직사메디 디디 단담레스 되네 가랑 건반전에 강라 신나 로이 신상마텔로 민주고 분주심도 컨셉도 여도 tanto 여신노 세송레 디인디 강라테네 둘린 참에다 셰파케 직사메나 바니디 Chatamawa Tindugo, Dodivagi, Tidugoyaris, it is.
So now let's get to the Shravakas, the vehicle of the Shravakas. Shravaka means, often in English it's translated as listener, right? Listener or hearer, or listener-hearer. Shravakas are also called, they can also be called listeners and proclaimers, meaning they listen to teachings from Buddha and from other Shravaka disciples, and then they proclaim them or share them with others. So that's what the word Shravaka means. Listening and proclaiming. That can apply also to the Pratyeka Buddhas. So, as with so many of these points that we're touching upon, if we go into any kind of detail about the Shravaka vehicle and likewise the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle, we could spend just the entire session on that alone, and still we would barely have touched, the depths of these topics. What I'm trying to do, as I explained before, is to give you both an overview and an introduction to the key essential points of these various aspects of this teaching. And with a basic grasp of these key essential points, you can then, if you wish, pursue further studies and further teachings. You can look at the more extensive scriptures, such as Longchenpa's Dispelling Darkness in the 10 Directions, Mipham Rinpoche's Luminous Essence, or Longchenpa's own Treasury of the Wish-Fulfilling Treasury, Yishinzu, and so on. And the essential points that I'm introducing you to now will give you a good basis, will enable you to navigate the depths of those extensive teachings. So, to mention a few points about the Shravaka vehicle, their approach. In Longchenpa's Yishinzu, the Wish-Fulfilling Treasury, he explains one of the reasons there's so much to say about the Shravakas is that, and the Pratyeka Buddhas, is that they actually have two different philosophical systems. So they have there's a twofold division within these vehicles, and two slightly different philosophical systems, which each have their own assertions and so on. These two systems are the Sautantrika and the Vaibhashika. Each of these philosophical systems, Sautantrika and Vaibhashika, have further divisions, further differences within their own schools. 7 different assertions, slightly different assertions in each of these schools. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of subtle differences to be learnt about and understood. But as I said, we're not going to go into those details right now. I just wanted to mention them. The crucial point, though, or main point of both the Sautantrika and Vaibhashika schools, which are the philosophical systems of the Shravakas and the Pratyeka Buddhas. Both of these schools assert that ultimately, on the level of ultimate truth, two things exist: the partless particle and the partless moment of consciousness. So they say that all coarse phenomena that we perceive, for instance, as houses, roads, everything where all the objects we're looking at now, those are merely imputations. Those do not ultimately really exist. But their the subtle basis for their formation does exist, and the subtle basis for their formation is the partless particle or partless atom. This is actually very much in line with many schools of science, which talk about sort of indestructible subtle atoms, finer than extremely fine. By talking about an extremely fine and subtle level of phenomena, they believe that there is a partless, indestructible particle that forms the basis for the formation of all coarser, perceivable phenomena. That's in terms of external phenomena, as opposed to consciousness. In terms of consciousness, they believe that all of our sort of coarse perceptions, thoughts, and goings on of the mind are merely imputations. They don't truly exist. But there is a basis, a truly existent, ultimately existent basis for those coarser mental events, and that is an indivisible a partless moment of consciousness. So this is the assertion of this is the philosophical belief of the Shravaka vehicles, the Shravaka vehicle. Thank you.
Tini ta chata mawa tan do dewa ni jeti tini gomba kote chame ni den do bati chipares te ina ya nangse gindo tan la to skepara yore dumache tini namkala sakwa tini dumache tamche takpara yinsin do gen chitan dumache tini tagayo zamjiri mato ge tini takpa mare segin do dewa soge tindrige tini do tan tan yang yul sindi kanla ongbu ge go ge yul seyondi kanla chata mawa yul rangsen do zangire segin do ongbu go yul rangsen do jugre segin do ta chata mawa do dewa soge tini oya dunshi zam namba zam lo zen ten namba la teni tini yul la jugo judo ta tini yul la jutang da chama go ni sheba ina yul la jutang da tida ko la chata mawa don do dewa to to kebar to to sene kebar chamo yor sama namba so ta tida shena kebar di ma impege chamingi de de ba de la chata mawa don do dami kebar kayo mare tan digi tonda da kanshe go chamingi de na kan kyo resana ngaran su su dakshi pungbu ko di ngaran su legi pungbu de la nga sa nga pe mare sali yin sila ngi tonda la di ngi tropu yin sa gausa yin sa ya ko che di ngi maga sa yin dai su na ba de ngaran su pe da ngi ring ki to so ba mong di kang de ne yo sa rang lul tang yang go re lung lu de la dine chakpa tang dawa ke go re ngaran da shen se ke dawa ke dawa chi se ke dine chakpa chi se ke yul lu ki pungbu de pungbu nga so so do shin na ba shi pungbu nga de ta jigden ba nang ke depro trup de ni lu de chang mai ni dang chik pu yin ni de ke lu de dine chang de tang ba tang dem ba tang chang de da da gran shin jing yin sin jigden ba nang de sang go rang ge lu de chik rang ge lu de chang mai rang ge lu de dewa yi chang de tak ba yi dewa yi de de wi ke chung a ta ba zen de jigden ba chul sang tam je de don du chang mai ya mare marang su de mi zang wi de sum chi so de gran se dewa ya mare tandaran ngu go tu gore tandaran ha ge go gore dewa ya mare chang de tak ba ya mare ge do yo re shi do yo re ya tene tandaran accident la ba kang ba che go tu ge re ka ge te tak ba te ba ya lu de tene te ba ya mare chang de tak dak seging ngobu ji ngayo ngoni shu por nga tak bu ya kan ji sam de re don tu tene tene ngoni shu to tak bu ya sang ngobu ji ra ga mare dak seging yo mare ngola yo ma kang ba ka sa le che na 자다 당선 랩나다 뱀 미망고 다지 시겨로 되나 나랑 시기 랩나다 나 차라연제 같이 또 르발라 같이도 티카 망고 가월 딱잖아 다스긴 토교 따디 메신도 나랑서 리디 다인 장마인 대와인 딱바인 직고인 시큐기티는 로디 그렇게 메기 등아서 되게 되는 딜 출바세요. 인데가 알아서 캠프체 결혼부터 뒤송고도 나도 남바상계 인사라서 뭐 돈다데 지를 못 입고다 다우다 지어랬어. 샘기 쓴다데 쓴다면 저를 못 입게 되는 다데 있네. 딱바이 직부 인식을 요래. 뒤인도 그냥 알아서 그 샘기 쓴다당 저를 못 입게 세상이 다우다 지어래. 방에서 먼저 알아서 담시야 지금 비출당 같다 다 준비권 시고 그래. 알아서 저를 못 입게 된다 뒤인도 그냥 다가서게 요래 딱바리 직부래. 다들 임비기 두지 먹고 샤요. 대인도 강하도 나고 상계백이 다서긴데 요 말에 직부 말에 딱바 말에 쓰고. 다인도 다 직부인 시스기 시디 강하도 풍부하대래. 나랑 수기 풍부하대라 다가서고. 뒤다들이. 대인도 강다 뒤딱쓰기 시디 되네 강하랑 쓰잖아. 풍부하대래. 대인도 강다 나도 짐비기 짐바디 강하도 셈래. 증긴티 제일 율다 풍부하대라. 둘친기 때나 진지기 때나 증겐디 셰바래 나 세경기 때나 셰바지요 디인도 강타 셰바디야 딱바이 치율디야 딱바이 참이니가 딱바이 선다디 제가 뭐 도거래 디만데 바이나 뭐고 탐지 좀 심면 dost다 세리베 티서거로 컨템 페이스지면은 탐지 금메와 차도를 라버래 디니 셰바싱이 되면은 개와 같이 두기면도 레기도 두기면도 내도 명리 사마레서 딜라고 페나 레인 딜라사 개와 셔만 두는 거 두시면 명사마레 유디가 셰바스킹 비준지어래. 그래서 다 디니디 코노 터두면 디 마이마 탐지디 디네 출발했다. 오야 디네 다스긴 탐지디 요 말에 야 디네 다요레스. 셰바스긴 디안디네 거 셰바데 뒤에 균기 셰바 탐지디 다요레. 마트바레스. 다 참민이디 덴트브레 디니디 터두게 된다그레스. 나랑 디 도선 반주 드진 참메디 당 셰바 참민이기 네술데 도선 반주 되니 풍부등라 다도 집어요 말이 풍부등라 다도 맞으면 걸어라 켜고 말때는 오늘 랑상기 고방다 이미 되게 고방다 랑상기 고방도 프로그레스 근데 되나 보여요.
So the ultimate assertion of both of these philosophical systems of the Shravakas.
이나야 된 짐바 셰바디 되네 그러바라 참미디 된득도요 디티네 권이 알고게야 레벨도 켜버차.
So the ultimate position of these two philosophical systems, the Sautantrikas and Vaibhashikas, excuse my bad pronunciation, but on the ultimate level they assert the very same thing. And just one clarification, I was mistaken just earlier when I said that this is the case for both the Shravaka vehicle and the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle. The actually ultimate assertion of the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle is slightly different. So the assertions we're talking about now pertain only to the Shravaka vehicle. So to reiterate, ultimately these two philosophical systems held by the Shravaka followers assert the same thing. They say that there is a truly existent partless particle and a truly existent partless moment of consciousness. On the relative level, they do not agree on everything. There are differences in their assertions on the relative level. For instance, one school asserts that unconditioned phenomena are ultimately true or real, whereas the other school says that no, the unconditioned phenomena are merely imputations, they don't truly exist. For instance, the Vaibhashika school, they state that when discussing or examining how consciousness engages with objects, they say that consciousness engages, truly engages with the object, whereas the Sautantrika school say, oh no, consciousness only engages with an abstract image of the object, and so on and so forth. There are many differences between their relative assertions, but again, on the ultimate level, their assertions are the same. And to talk a bit more about the thinking behind their assertion. They look at, when we look at the process of self-clinging, the process of clinging to the mistaken clinging to an I, a sense of self that we perceive as real and true. This is the basis for this clinging are the 5 aggregates, one's personal 5 aggregates, which are anchored in the body, the physical body, right? So we have the physical, but form, the 5 aggregates are form, feeling, perception, conditioned factors, and consciousness, right? And based on these 5 aggregates, based on these 5 aggregates, we impute a self, an identity. We believe this to be real, to truly exist, separate from other things. This mistaken belief automatically generates attachment, and in reaction to attachment, aversion, and from there spiral then further afflictions and so on. And then this process becomes, very coarse, unfolds and expands into very coarse affliction, conflicts, disagreements, arguments, and so on and so forth. We believe the 5 aggregates that we identify, or that the 5 aggregates upon which we impute the self, we believe them mistakenly to be clean, to be the nature of, or a source of happiness, to be permanent, and to be our identity. But in reality, this is not the case, right? Our physical body, for instance, we think that it's something clean, but it is not. If we examine its real nature, we find that it is incredibly unclean. We think that it is a source of happiness, but it is not. One moment we're laughing, the next we're crying. We think that the body is, we assume that it's permanent, but this is not how things are. We are born, but then we grow old and we die, the body changes. We might have an accident, have to even have a limb amputated, so on. The body is by no means permanent. Fourth mistaken notion about the 5 aggregates upon which we impute the self is that they are our identity. But actually we cannot find an identity, or we could also use the word self here, anywhere. These days, again, to use the example of modern scientists, they are examining all phenomena, right? Inner phenomena, outer phenomena, and no self, no truly existent identity or person is ever found. So this is our deluded belief, right? Our deluded, mistaken belief. We believe in a self, a me, that is based upon, or rather that exists within the 5 aggregates. One of my teachers, Great Kempo, actually said he pointed out that this mistaken mode of clinging that kind of defines our perception, this is actually very much in line with the positions, the assertions of non-Buddhist schools, right? They assert like an eternal soul, a truly existent self. That is actually how we think automatically, right? Mundane, ordinary, confused people like us, that's how we think. So to return to how does this relate to the position of the Shravakas and their 2 philosophical systems of the Sautantrika and Vaibhashika? Well, the Sautantrika and Vaibhashika recognize that this process of imputing the self on this mistaken process of imputing the self on the 5 aggregates occurs. They understand that that is all mistaken, deluded, that is not the way in accord with the way things really are. But they also believe that if there were no subtle basis for the formation both of the body and physical phenomena and also consciousness, then it would be impossible for anything to come about. Even though all coarse phenomena do not truly existent, they're merely imputations. If there weren't a truly existing subtle partless particle, how could any of these imputed experience phenomena come about? Likewise, they believe that if there were no ultimately existing partless moment of consciousness, a very subtle but ultimately existing partless moment of consciousness, how could there be a continuity of mind? How could there be past and future lives? How could there be karmic causality? So that being the case, they assert that ultimately there is a partless particle and a partless moment of consciousness, whereas relatively all coarse phenomena and all coarse mental events or aspects of consciousness are not real but merely imputations. And they believe that if one realizes the falsity of coarse phenomena and comes to realize these two partless phenomena, partless particle and partless moment of consciousness, then one will obliterate confusion, one will cease to be deluded, and one will attain enlightenment as they understand it. That's what I'm saying.
Tene tawa di ujire dingi tu kana shepa tiang tene chame ni di dondu de tamje tongpa ni re segures arang rapa tamje da chi ngo tamje ngarang so mege tongja ndona ngarang so rze tamje re tongba re di gi zamchi chibu chame de dendu re shepa de rapa tamje nga da sem jung ge toba sem da sem jung ge toba tamje da yore ina ya chame shepa chame de dentro stati diogare ti koranso che tati metto tante sola ogni cigena ti ricordo che io tangaranso un banzo so tan dinani ta tenzo pe gajigi qua mangpoji yore ya ngaranso tarita metto pe dorji segen la sova c'era un motivo per siamo canse ngaranso niente da rangirki tene rabat nganso sona chistere darme per tela papchigiri qua tan sheparan simale tela papchigiri qua mangpoji un banzo ne yore Tinasing umanam da pesa sara mangoyare tene semsamba da umaba kirko mangoya ta tizo tamje dangda kyawso shepra kinso de yongen tamje lobjung gen kachare kegi ton dos kyans kopta chömche ma to kinso pe doctor pass che gyo zo ta chingne graduate je ya ko meje be pije yo ma tamje doctor engine de kyawa ta je de kala mo tamje tupta ma tu rese de kyans hakko ore ta ina kyans nyeba yo ma re ti nyeba te dam komse me be kynsegi ngaran do chatang de ke ma do ta ma tu re a ngone khangpa te cha ta samin te gre ne sa dul ge sen kyang zo ha ko re she pa te ngone keji le jirwa chi de te me ta ha ko de kyo go lob jung shi se ge thum bore ti lab te kang khen so te lab na ha ko ma do ya ta le lob jung me gen je te lab na khan de do ta u do sam gre ti in te ma re ti in du kang ta tin su ge pa zo ta tin su de she ma go chi ti she de na nga zo tu su ge sang sa ya ma re jik te ni ba de la ta chue tam je ra pa tham ji de me tong ba ni re es 야 참밍이 된주레에서 그거네 땅 알아서 당념 된바 일면 나라 냠바 또 냠바 첨부선 똥반 얘기 돈다고 냠바 얘기 똥반 얘기 되네 또 소요 말에스 되네 그런 게 다 디퍼런트 우리 캐버드 되네 차도요레스
So to sum up, these two schools of the Shravaka vehicle, they assert that ultimately all phenomena are empty. They don't truly exist. The only things that truly exist are these extremely subtle partless particle, and the partless moment of consciousness, which are the basis for the arising of all other mental phenomena and all other physical, so to speak, phenomena. But those phenomena themselves, those coarser phenomena, do not have any real ultimate existence. They're merely imputations. This is essentially their position. This is explained extensively in texts like the Abhidhamma Kosha and in such texts as well as the Madhyamaka treatises, as well, and also the Chittamachin mind-only texts. These positions are. This position is established through many different types of logical reasoning and argumentation. So the selflessness of the person and so on is established in these texts according to this view in those texts. All of you here, I'm very well aware that all of you here are very educated and very knowledgeable. So without a doubt, you understand, you get absolutely what I'm saying about and understand conceptually at least, this view of the Shravakas. You know, when I'm the only barrier between us is language. But for instance, because you are all educated, you will understand and already know, right, that yes, physical phenomena are made up of smaller atoms. Physical phenomena themselves don't exist, rather they're made up of smaller atoms. You haven't perhaps gained a deeper level of certainty, of kind of experiential certainty in that truth, but conceptually you understand that, right? Because I'm very aware of that, I'm not going to go say much more about this view. I'm quite aware that you have a good grasping of it. So we've summed up this view of the Shravaka vehicle as it is presented by the two philosophical systems, the Sautantrika and Vaibhashika. So to return to the viewpoint of inseparable purity and equality, from the stance of inseparable purity and equality, because of the Shravaka's assertion that ultimately these two partless phenomena exist, they have yet to realize equality. They have yet to realize that all phenomena without exception are emptiness, without any division or difference. So that is their deficiency. Because of that, we can see that they have not realized and understood the inseparability of purity and equality. So we have the inseparability of purity and equality. In terms of equality, they have not realized that the Shravakas are not able to realize that all phenomena without exception are profound emptiness. So from the perspective of equality, they haven't reached the view of Ati Yoga, the great perfection. In terms of purity, the Shravakas do not perceive phenomena as pure. Rather, they perceive phenomena as impure, as just ordinary earth, water, and so on. They're not able to perceive phenomena as the boundless display of enlightened purity, and to see beings as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and so on. So, from both of these, both aspects, they have not reached the view of the great perfection of Ati Yoga, which is inseparable purity and equality.
Dungal kita ngaran ne tapi dungal ke rangsi shegwari tini dungal dik jukana jong kunjung sere nyomong bare ti ju nyomong bale tini dungal ki tempati chungo yores ti junte nyires tini nyangel dewa nye tini lamden da goden nyires goden din diures dungal thamche letarwa ta te dewa mongu jamna da mamungu jagyor ti dikana dewa tini ta nyendu ki dajim ko bang tire deure ta nyen dajim bala ya mongu jore 다지고 이 톱지기 규칙 강화서나 되네 람덴 세겐데 되네 대기 되네 뭐고 탐지기 내술 강에 봐 대도네 어야 대디네 도네 del라디네 나란서 냠렌체 다 냠렌체 어디 강라 되네 람덴 되게 규군중당 대소 탐지 방도 그래 이 군중대 방 어디 강라 되네 고바도 모두 기르는 거래 고바문도 기르비게 되네 규디 강아래서 반죠 람덴레 단디디 개와시게는 대빼먹고 시겨 다 디시해는 것도 저렇게 말해 캐나스 담지다 라마 탐지게 송규디 덴바시기랑 진 탐지게 송도도 때때래다 덴바시들라야 대과공 오게 알자르나 양 덴바시디야 삽도 년들에 랑상게 사바랑상게를 장주스름데 사바 장주스름래야 되네 그 상학 대과 사바 텔라야 접하시면 사바다 텔레지네 림바진 시규대 요야르데 딱상 덴바시디 년도게 라마 샤네데 디 덴바시를 이 곰당데 칸도 공거스나 데 띵인지 거네 어야 드네 나랑도 띵인지 셰바이 당이 뒤뒤셰도 어디 뭐 올라가는 사서 말해 다들 사서도 된게 또 년도에 사람도 데 띵데 강아레서 딜라 곰지딜라 nyapanga tan tuji gese tingin ziki gumpike taptela tene tungal tan tebashi ranchin de gumpiti combateres tawatire te combateres.
So that was the view. That is the view that they hold. They actualize that view through meditation, right? That's how it goes. You have the view and then you actualize that through meditation, practice. So what do the Shravakas meditate upon? They meditate upon the four truths, the four noble truths, or we could say the four truths of noble ones. These being the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of cessation, and the truth of the path. These four truths describe the nature of things, the nature of objects, we could say. So the Shravakas, by means of their view of emptiness, they meditate. By means of the view of emptiness that they hold, they come to understand the nature of things as being the four truths. And no doubt you're all very familiar with the four truths. Whatever level of teaching one is looking at, the four truths apply. The four truths are taught in the Shravaka vehicle, but you should understand that they are actually, the four truths are taught at every level of the Buddha Dharma. And as you progress through the different vehicles, so through the 9 vehicles in this case, the four truths are taught and are relevant in every vehicle, but their presentation of the four truths will become more and more profound and more deep. So, for instance, the way the four truths are taught in the Bodhisattva vehicle is more profound than in the Shravaka vehicle, and so on and so forth as you move through the Tantras, all the way up to the 9th vehicle of Ati Yoga. So the Shravakas understand that the afflictions and karma and the afflictions are suffering. So they understand that our experience is the nature of suffering, and that karma and the afflictions are the cause of that suffering. They understand that there is a state of freedom from this suffering and the causes of suffering. This state of freedom is cessation, or their understanding of enlightenment, and that state is reached through the truth of the path. So the truth of the path is the meditation, the practice. By practicing, then the causes of suffering are relinquished, and then suffering is dispensed with, and the state of cessation, which is free of suffering and its causes, is manifested. This is this is how the four truths work and are presented. There's just so much detail that we could go into, right? But I'm going to have to speed up because we are still in the Shravaka vehicle. And we're only in the meditation. We have the view and then the meditation, right? That's so much.
Tene da gombati tire, tene de kan chopati, tene chopa sanchule nene, tene tungche dengala so parne, tene so trevi dombala jone. Desiketi chopatires. Adidushe toksa tamongushene sasamar.
So that's the view, the meditation. Then we have the conduct. The conduct, very simply speaking, is to abide by what we call pure conduct, or brahmacharya. So Shravaka practitioners, they take one of the pratimoksha, or personal liberation vows, and that is their conduct. And they train in having contentment and in reducing their desire. The result they attain is the state of arhat, or foe destroyer, and this includes the ultimate result they attain is that of arhatship, together with the 4 levels of accomplishment, which can be divided further into 8 pairs. That's right.
chirul muti pa soge tene tak pa yin chik pu yin se yore tene nangba sang yin yen tu gi tak pa se kheling go mare tak pa kheling go te tak pe thal man mare tene cheta wa na sin jang pe na sin le gyun te mela go mare number chi bi gyun gi tene ngaran so ina le da le gi number mi pa le che yore mi ta pare tene tham che mi ta pare mi ta pi ki gyun te gi die de kan che pe thala malong jang pe ba ki thala malong oh ya tene tina yin chirul muti pe tapar mawa oh ya rikwa chemba tama tinde chara mata tang chemba la su pe te we she du kang ngo botam chi tapai segin tinde ki malang den dor na te chirul muti le tum sare ha ga yin bi kyun sin kang tak sin yi ki thalin te bi lam di tine sang gi chom din de ge lam dire te te yin du kang te la te du kang la ta shi ki tha ti ta long du tine nga kang sa sana marang so ge gi ya re de res kang sa sana tarwa tamji kimpilam yang tabaje tarwi lamsa tamji kimpilam yen del chaw marde o ya dine dangme ki tonde o de to yo de ti du kangla di dine chirul mutik bi ge lam di takshe ni ge taw ngarang so namba sangje de da tak pa ta cheba sing kheleng go mare tanda se ge na sin che ge takshe ni ge thal de ba ke gore di me se be chi ge mo cheba po che de lai ke bare yi tu chi ge ngarang so lai ge se bare se ge ndo 딘데기 직진 꼬박 켈링 그 말에 디메기 진생 가레스 반주 탐지 교다 겐기 교겐기 텐데 켈링 거에 탐지 유튜브 겐시 되네 그 봐라 유튜브다 겐시 거니 개바인데 호야 되게 되네 거네 셰나 디니 뭐다 탐지 된 교겐기 거니 좋아 임바지 조금 그레스 데인데 그 교겐기 것도 조금 되가라 chirul moti ko soge ta chirul moti ko chiku mare de christian ne te sego sar ti mana muslim ki te sego thamje thai ko jo ne gi jigden de chuki samje thamje thai ko bare hat pak bare se de gi tenen do ba yor ta ma so kan te te me de kan shine kali ko ta gi de ma do ge don de ba ti de ro ti di de gi tenen na ba san ye bi ki te ba yin se thamje ki o ya tenen je tak ba tam den du ki kem de den de gi tenen 직된 거고 보시기에 왔다 딱 봤으니 이제 보통 쭉 제스 쭉 되게 근데 자원 켈링 그 말이스 인도 같이 저를 못 받아 남바 상기기 잡을 샤소레스 다들 뒤뒤뒤라 말아 맞아니 도도서
말이다. We can see then that the followers of the Shravaka vehicle, they are superior to their position, their approach is superior to that of non-Buddhist traditions, the non-Buddhist traditions we outlined yesterday. Why? Because unlike those following non-Buddhist traditions or outsider traditions, they do not accept a permanent or eternal self, a truly existent permanent or eternal self. They also, in that way, they don't fall into the extreme of eternalism. They also accept that all phenomena, no self, or there is no eternal self, yet all phenomena are merely dependently arisen. So through the interaction of causes and conditions, the 6 causes and 4 conditions, then phenomena come about, but they are not truly existent. Because they accept dependent arising, they accept karmic causality, and so on, then they do not fall into the extreme of nihilism. So in this way, they surpass both the eternalist and nihilistic positions or traditions of the non-Buddhists. And in this way, we can see, we can understand that the approach of the Shravaka vehicle, is a genuine path of Buddha's teaching, a genuine path to awakening, to liberation. And this, and just to repeat again, so the Shravakas do not accept an eternal self, creator God, an eternal soul, and so on. Any of those eternalistic positions or assertions made by non-Buddhist traditions. Therefore, they don't fall into the extreme of eternalism. Likewise, they don't fall into the extreme of nihilism, because they accept dependent arising, karmic causality, and so on.
Tene ta ngindogi dewo de tene koranso mitse dundang, mitsa jubshi dang, tene la tene dubigi nang, tene dachimbo gyushuk dang, tene chirwaan chirmiyong la subi dachimbo kobang topyo tene chigla tene mitse dunne changa parto, tene kawache na dachimbo kobang topyo til haka tene dewo topyo meres koranso da, dirang sangi de chigma doyo mares, kasi ngindogi lukla sangi de chigma mara, di mi mangbu chik sangi tuku mara, kalwa tangme sunu so sa tuku mara, di tsokso tungi da sangi chikpo chire, shaki tuwa chikpo chire, tene dachimbo laka kobang topyo mara singi korang ngindogi korang koto pares.
And as for their result, the attainment of their final result or consummate result according to their vehicle, it takes them anywhere between 7 and 14 lifetimes of practice to attain their respective result or fruition, namely the state of arhat or foe destroyer, or one of the lesser states such as stream enterer, once returner, non-returner. The followers of the Shravaka vehicle don't believe that everyone can attain full enlightenment, actually. They believe that there is just one Buddha. They don't believe that everyone has the ability to gather the accumulations for 3 countless eons, which is what's necessary to attain full enlightenment. So that was the Shravaka vehicle. Now we come to the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle.
Dulchin chamedi onege charama oda dewana sing chikitine dudu ba yosege maris diya matu bare chami singendi kansa dulchin chamedi tenimbe otor di nyentu leja ransan ki tawa de to yungu kyunsenti tene chameni na dulchin chamedi arashi matu bares ba sheba kejik chamedi na la taron ya shebi ki chati na ne sumjin chengi shepa de yo marate sumjin ita trabi shepa ji yores ela go shepa rangi ransa singi yose ware tindu kanla sumjin toppa ponche tan zimba mi ponche tan ni senda sherchin na te so ndu kanla koronge seba tela tine kra dame chingi topas ne jik chadang to jik chaga to de kan chingi topas ne jik chaga to de yore den chirul ki tine kra dulchin chame de chadang to sarwa ko di to go mare Chidamawasake na shincheke, Dodiwasake na shincheke, Chameni na Dutrin Chame Dendrubi in Sheba Tamchi, Tamchi, Tomchi Chame, Titi Tokumar, Rikwata Jevigoni, Martovache, Sheba Tilayang, Yulta, Shepani, the Sheba Tilayang, Zumzin Chigi Shepati, Mevache, Digi Shepashin to Chawa. Oh, Yatin, I am it is 7 potato, Gonda, Dutrin Chameti, Yomar, the Sheba, Kiji Chameti to your race, to go. Di Kala. Kuki tene yang sung jinye me ba de stem za ba de deru aya de chang da tung me ba de chang tung na jing jing ya ye de she tu da o ya tin de kan la du tin cha me de ma to ba de tene she ba cha me de to yo re stra go de du kan la koron so de zum den to pa pon chi tan zimba me pon chi tan ne zimba sim ge ran chi de ma pon yin du kan la da me ching ni to pa se tene rangel de nyen de le to wa yin ba da ron yang te pa chi mu le da ron yang So the
Pratyeka Buddha vehicle is quite easy to explain now that we've been through the Shravaka vehicle. So the Shravakas assert the ultimate existence of the partless particle and partless moment of consciousness, right? So the Pratyeka Buddhas are similar to the Shravakas in that they also assert the ultimate existence of a partless moment of consciousness. They believe that does exist. However, they do not assert the ultimate existence of a partless particle. Their understanding, their realization surpasses that of the Shravakas because they have come to realize that the partless particle that the Shravakas assert, that is in fact emptiness. That does not truly exist. However, they still hold on to the belief that there is a truly existent, partless moment of consciousness. In this way, their view is higher, it surpasses that of the Shravaka vehicle. And in the Prajnaparamita scriptures, it's explained that the realization of the Pratyeka Buddhas is said to be that of 1.5 selflessness. What that means is that, like the Shravakas, they realize the selflessness of the person, but when it comes to the selflessness of phenomena, they've only realized half of it, so to speak. When we examine phenomena, we see that there's a perceived aspect of phenomena and a perceiving aspect of phenomena, right? So the Pratyeka Buddhas realize the emptiness or lack of self of the perceived aspect of phenomena, but not the perceiving aspect, namely not the subtle consciousness which they still hold on to as being truly existent, hence their assertion of a partless moment of consciousness on the ultimate level, right? So that is, that's their view, their assertion. That's
Dini da rangsangi ki tawa kangrasina da meba tawa la chikwares, magini tu da chikware. Dini kang da meba tatang di kasi ta tagi ki shibsha di shesa son. Ansina da sagin te pungbu ngal ta ngarang su surwa tushin nabar shiwi ki pungbu ngarang di pungbu ngatela da meba ta takpa chiyo sigi di droda wares. Droda wares. Di kele ga mares. Dini ana shisana kakya mes ta le gyunje me shisana kewa lengu me tili cheta sagres. Dini kang la 년도다 랑상긴 이외에 다시니게 다 계랭가 말에 풍부가라 딱딱바 생겨 말에 딱여기 딱지다 여래 nga kelora singa permansa singi yore di yore mata di ming칭하라 딱섬저에 마도게 돈도 잘리 얘기 말에 대대인도 공아 딱비기 딱잠지데 내겁되네 람드로베 강사 안지 디각고 말에 되네 딱여 잠지기 다래 이 마임비게 딱딱바 인스긴게 디여바이나 드로타 바래 디에티네 그런 남바상기게 람단 갈바래 Ota dachi mere chiga yomar shidin kake kewa lengyo mar chiga merasana kurinde pre lekyundir korwa kewa lengyo re tamji gyugen le kewa re shin kewa ina kangba ina da kangma ina tamji gyugen tenrile chungre ta dangsang sendrik bege ti purup chige yo tamji gyugen re lamne gyudan kensa na namlo purugyo sa salan zulu yo chaga chunang ro yo zoesha yo re dangsang computer second tran minta internet second tran minta tu tamji dia gyugen ki tenrile chunga yin tu kangla e gyugen la keso la go mar yin tu kangla 그 다 매발라 딱 유선 딱 와야라겠네 도다래 신이 가게 요 말했어게 돼 그런데 그래 이 그렇지 년도다랑 장 이거 매발 단다레스 다시 풍부했던 거
In terms of their view of selflessness, the self of the person, in terms of their understanding of in terms of the view regarding the self of the person, the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas hold the same position. So as I explained earlier regarding the Shravakas, they see that our identifying our 5 aggregates as the self, as a truly existent self, is mistaken, and the experience of a self, of me, I, say Laura, or she said Pema Rigzal, based on these 5 aggregates, is merely a conceptual imputation. There is no self or I that truly exists anywhere in these 5 aggregates. So the sense of I or self we experience is a mere imputation on a relative level that does function, but it has no ultimate existence. Because of by understanding this, then both the Pratyeka Buddhas are alike as Pratyeka Buddhas, just like the Shravakas. They avoid the faults of exaggeration, or we could say imposition, meaning imposing on reality something that is not there, exaggerating. They also avoid the opposite extreme, which is denigration, so claiming that something that does function, that is there, is not there. Some of the non-Buddhist schools are nihilists, and they say that after you die, the continuity of awareness ceases. There is no such thing as rebirth. There is no karmic cause. There's no causality beyond this very life. That is a fault of denigration. The Pratyeka Buddhas, just like the Shravakas, do not fall into that extreme, into that mistake, because they understand and assert that relatively cause and condition function, things arise in dependence upon one another. Karmic causality functions, there are past and future lives, we are reborn, and so on. So they avoid both of these mistaken extremes of exaggeration or imposition on the one hand and denigration on the other. And just regarding, relative phenomena arising in dependence upon one another through the interaction of causes and conditions, this is something that scientists are coming to prove, or we could say illustrate, through all of their modern day inventions, right? It's through their understanding of the interplay of causes and conditions, the function of causes and conditions, that scientists are able to create all the things they're creating, right? By manipulating the process of cause and condition. This is no doubt something you're all very, very well aware of.
감정 거를 비교도 가래 말이 바래 말이 버디 가는 두제 가는 나 벌써 다 되는 맞다 디 기와시야 뭐 살게 말 근데 텐데 중이 공부요 텐데 중이 디아랑 신디 간데 공부라서나 년대 공부 나신지게 덴바시 공부요 그래서 페나 마리과 코로나에 덴바시 잡네 마리과 코로나 동아래 마리과디 양 두제 계획을 군중으로 데 테네 가서나 고바 디 고제게 탑디 가서나 람덴데 디 마리가 바야시 두제라 시시시 long long bakda shana yo neji de kala shishi junyi shira shibi shabjera ba o ya te lam tik komni tenen dewu tenen ransangi ko bango de chege yo se jobani changchore chekare dewu ni tenen ta gewa dunne gewa junyi chuksun parto gor gor te ransangi ko bango tob gare ransangi segende kansara sana je gewa tamadela jese genti cha gewa tamadela tenen 상기 장주스만 농동발로 만에 랑그랑티네 그 동바탕 텐데 기위싱이라 때뭐 랑그랑 자주몬도 지와들 랑상게 세게와 따tilaya 룽진 당기 또 마올람 뒤주 조르래 따 랑상게 텐데레스 당기도 랑상이 조
키워드니 주시거든 키워드니
키워드니 저가 따tilaya tum누지나 랑상게 고본도 그래서 담지 20주 달에는 이진저다고 땅갔다 좀 So
that's their view. In terms of their meditation, they meditate on the 12 links of dependent arising. So the 12 links that begin with ignorance, and then conditioning, and so on, all the way to aging and death. In terms of how they meditate on these 12 links, it's using the framework or the understanding of the Four Truths. So, for instance, the first of the 12 links, ignorance, is understood to be the cause of suffering, so the truth of the cause of suffering. Then the next links, the links that issue from ignorance, conditioning, and so on, are understood to be the truth of suffering. And likewise, some of the links, the great master Rongson Mahapandita explains this, meditating on the 12 links in terms of the Four Truths. Won't say more about that here. So that's the meditation of the Pratyeka Buddhas. As for their conduct, it's the same as the Shravakas. They observe what we call pure conduct or brahmacharya. As for their fruition, they attain their respective fruition within 7 or up to 15 or so lifetimes. What we mean by Pratyeka Buddha in English we could translate it, say it means self-realized Buddha, or like a lone Buddha. These beings are in we could say that their final rebirth in samsara, and they do not need to rely on an external teacher. So they're born and they sort of enter the path without needing to meet a teacher, meeting the Buddha or anyone else. They naturally enter the path, engage in practice, and manifest their results. Yes, last one.
Yeah, that picture to do the job again. The karma is Shaka. Yeah, that the day shatini, teacher latini, charges to be tevatam, some like the tepatam, the Nilamig, the
So we'll pause here for our break, and when we resume, then we'll continue with the Bodhisattva vehicle and the outer tantras and inner tantras. I am going to make sure we get through the 9 vehicles by the end of tonight. You might be thinking, oh, Rinpoche is really taking his time. Even if we had an extra day, he wouldn't finish. But I am going to finish.
Sonamdi tamchi zirpani, domne nge pe tonan pa, jeng keka nasi balong chakwa, iti pe so den